He's Pablo Torre, ESPN commentator, contributor to Around the Horn, PTI. And Pablo Torre finds out podcast, Meadowlark Media. And apparently he found out a little more than we realized about what's going on with Bill Belichick and his girlfriend at North Carolina. Pablo, good to see you. What did you find out? What did Pablo Torre find out?
Dan, good to be with you. Really good to see you as well. On my show, for those not initiated, I take stupid things sometimes extraordinarily seriously. And so I spent months of my life in the Jordan Hudson rabbit hole. I talked to 11 people who dealt directly with her. And a couple of things. Number one is that there was an enormous meeting at the University of North Carolina where the athletics department had to have a meeting with the football people and say that Jordan Hudson cannot be the face of our program anymore. She cannot be on the field. She cannot be around the building. She has taken too much when it comes to the airspace around how people think of the coach, the greatest coach in football history, arguably, who, when they hired him to be the highest paid coach in the history, well, forget about any present day North Carolina stats, just the highest paid public employee in the state of North Carolina right now. It was the opposite, right? They had no idea this was coming. Everybody is now actively worried, including, I can also report, members of Bill Belichick's own family, that a thing that takes decades to build, reputation premised on leadership and discretion and privacy and discipline and every other term that now feels like it's the opposite of what his reputation is now in this news cycle, they feel like that's being destroyed. And it's because he gave the power to run his new media empire, now that he has been freed from the NFL for the first time in decades. He gave that to a woman whose age has actually been misreported a lot, I also learned, but we can now say is actually today 24 years old.
What's Bill's reaction? Any public reaction to this?
It's hard to discern because she is the person who is on the emails, on the texts, is often ghostwriting. So his reaction will be mediated, I believe, with her. I will point out that in New York City, where I live, on Wednesday, there was a talk that Bill gave to promote his book, the book that was disastrously, you could argue, non-promoted at the CBS Sunday Morning fiasco. He gave a talk and Jordan wasn't there. There might be something like a deliberate, if not to borrow the terms of like another Hollywood separation, not quite a conscious uncoupling, but certainly a public difference in how they are presenting her omnipresence. And yeah, what I can tell you is that family members of Bill see this as something that is, they have been investigating her too for a very long time.
If the CBS interview doesn't play out like it did, do you think there's any change within North Carolina with her role with Bill?
The fascinating thing about Belichick is that he has this inner circle, people who have insulated him as best they can from all of these concerns, right? And so I'm going to say, spoiler alert, answer to your question is no. And the reason is because he is a football creature with a bunch of, frankly, yes men around him. Matt Patricia, Josh McDaniels, that's how they were described to me, not my editorial judgment. And the CBS thing seeped, has some septic, but also seeping vibes to it. It got inside of his bubble, right? That book, the tabloid avalanche, happening because she did something that, and you know this, Dan, a savvy PR person doesn't do, actually, which is forget that she's on tape, on camera, on mic, interjecting. And I'm told also that, yes, the reports are true, that there's 30 more minutes of her interrupting, taking control of an interview that was supposed to be, frankly, a puff piece, an extraordinarily positive thing about this book, about his leadership style, which could then be transferred to non-football people. That was the premise of it, ironically. That's what opened the floodgates, man. And at that point, it became, how do we deal with this? And at that point, lots of people realized now is our moment to say what we've been seeing behind the scenes, which is one of the crazier sagas, man. I haven't even got into some of the other stuff here. If I can just give you one brief anecdote just to help illustrate the point here. There was a commercial that Belichick was filming, a 7-figure commercial, not the Super Bowl commercial, by the way, which we reported also. Jordan Hudson insinuated herself into by representing herself as his agent to Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, a thing that Affleck and Damon still talk about to this day, by the way. that she was in that commercial, that she got paid, that they negotiated with her for Belichick. Separate commercial, earlier commercial for one of the podcasts he was doing. 7-figure shoot, scripted. She shows up. She's not a person in the public view. No CBS interview yet. None of this stuff has happened. She shows up and she, again, wants to be in the commercial. And she's talking about how this would be a hard launch. That's the relationship term I've been given, a hard launch of their relationship, public announcement. And she says, hold on, I have an idea. She leaves. Some time passes. The shoot actually ends, the real shoot. She comes back and she's wearing a yellow polka dot bikini and a sun hat. And she wants to film a scene where she is by the pool with Bill, trying to get his attention. All of this, again, very on the nose, the meta and the real. But that happens, and everybody there is like, what do we do with this? Like, this is, Bill Belichick is not betraying any emotional change. He's just going along with all of this because that's him, they're realizing. And they decide we need to do the thing where we tell her we're shooting a scene. They grab a camera guy, and they proceed to shoot something that I am told they're not even sure the camera was on. They point a camera, they have her do something, and they say, good, yep, got it, good. And that's just what it's been like. That was at the beginning of her taking control of the media empire. Everything from there is sort of flowing kind of logically once you hear about that.
And I said this after the CBS interview. If Bill has any hopes of getting back into the NFL, this really hurts you because you're giving control to Bill, but are you giving control to Bill and there's no way an NFL team is going to go, I think Bill, now's the time to bring him in. But in the final 30 seconds, what do you think is next in this story?
I think you're going to see people push back on the reporting out of North Carolina that I've said, which is that there was a power struggle in which the adults had to intervene. I think there will be disagreement about that. And I think that what is happening to my phone will continue to happen, which is that it will continue to melt. I signed up for this. I get it. Aggregation, interviews like this are all great. I hope people listen to the episode, but I can tell you that everybody who's dealt with Jordan Hudson, and one person said, quote, she is the worst person I've ever dealt with on earth, and I have dealt with actual sociopaths. I'm not saying that is everybody. I'm just saying this story, Dan, is extreme, and there's a lot, including injectable erectile dysfunction drugs, as just a brief tease for what else we had to find out.
Nice tease there. Great to talk to you. Thank you, Pablo.
As I always dreamed, Dan. As
Yes,
I always dreamed.
Of course. Pablo Torre. Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast, courtesy of Meadowlark Media. Oh, my goodness. There's a lot going on. A lot going on.